Oh, hi folks, it's James here. Welcome to another Sunday evening listening couch instalment. I was going to go live again tonight, but I decided I was a bit tired, and you've got to be a bit more on the ball really for live stuff. Did my first live feed the other day. Excuse me. It was just meant to be a test, and but I'm grateful to the people who tuned in for that. Hopefully going to do another one. In fact, I'm thinking about doing a series of live feeds, but I'll talk about that at the end, and I can just give you my thoughts on how it might work. So anyway, yes, been listening to a few good things this week. I'll talk about the coronavirus in a minute. Let's get started with a bit of music. This is what's in the background. This is the Supreme Jubilees, and It'll All Be Over. And you can hear it's got this very cool late night kind of soul gospel vibe. Really nice. This was re-released on CD. I think it got a vinyl release as well a few years ago now, I think. But it was originally released in 1980, and the Supreme Jubilees were a band of brothers and cousins. The group was founded from two families, brothers Joe and Dave Kingsby, plus Dave's son David Kingsby Jr., and keyboardist Leonard Sanders, plus brothers Phillips, drummer, Tim, bassist, and Melvin, tenor. They grew up singing together in the Witness of Jesus Christ Church in Fresno, CA, where their dad Marlon was a pastor. This is a mind-blowing record. They've got this amazing, I saw a documentary a few years ago. It was quite a while ago now, and it was about the Bee Gees. It was about vocal harmony groups, and they interviewed the Bee Gees and a couple of other groups who were also members of the same family. And Barry Gibb and Robin Gibb and Morris Gibb, they did this little impromptu demonstration of how they could do this amazing three-part harmony singing just at the drop of a hat. One of them starts to sing a line and the other two just fall in. And in that interview they were saying it's really amazing how when you belong to the same family, there's a certain unison quality to the voices which you don't get in a group where people are not related. What this record has got, it's just got that amazing combination of voices where they've obviously all grown up together in the same family, and it just makes for a very beguiling sound. It's quite chilled out in places. But elsewhere it goes into quite kind of gospel-y sort of almost Sly and the Family Stone type music. It's very sanctified sounding. Really nice record. It's like discovering a sort of late night gospel channel on the radio, just in the sort of early hours of the morning, like a little secret little world that you go into. I just love the churchy atmosphere to it. Anyway, that's the Supreme Jubilees, and It'll All Be Over. It's quite affordable, that. You can pick that up for not too much money. Right, so what else have I been listening to this week? Niccolo Box Family, you can see, 249. This is his album The Convincer, which came out in 2001. And when I bought this, the guy at the in the shop, was it a woman? The person in the shop anyway said to me, "Oh, is that music? He looks like a kind of raconteur or somebody who should be doing after dinner speeches." And I assume that's meant to be the intended effect. I've only listened to the first two songs of this so far, but I wanted to talk about it because they're so great. The track Homewrecker, the song Homewrecker, and Only a Fool Breaks His Own Heart. They're done in this very, very slow, intense. What it really reminded me of was, Dave Godin. He was a kind of blues researcher and broadcaster who did this amazing series of CDs called Deep Soul Treasures. And I think Nick Lowe is consciously modelling himself on those recordings for this record. It's just got that very, very slow burning, kind of intense feel with a very whispery, kind of intimate vocal. And it's him really, really going to town on the kind of blue-eyed soul. He's sort of imitating that kind of, like the softer side of Otis Redding. He was always really influenced by American music back in the day. But Nick Lowe, he came upon the pub rock scene with people like Dave Edmunds and all those guys. And their music could be quite sort of rough hewn. It was quite, you know, it had rough edges and it was a bit bang crash wallop. But he always had, I think he always had an affinity for kind of American roots music, and that certainly is coming through on this. The musicianship is really just on the ball, you know, really kind of.
But I know it will. Homewrecker.
I don't want to call it tasteful because that's a word which suggests sort of surface detail.
Candy from my baby.
I don't know, it's just very finely judged, kind of low key but intense, you know.
I've seen you do it. Homewrecker.
I love the intimacy of his voice.
Home better than you can.
Very American sounding, isn't it? You know, given that he's British.
'Cause I'm a homeless
And then track 2 is Only a Fool Breaks His Own Heart, which is a great sentiment. He was a great lyricist, is a great lyricist, you know, Niccolo. He's got that kind of quirky English thing. He's a bit like Elvis Costello, I think, in that as the years have gone on, he's become much more heartfelt. Again, it's got that kind of late night vibe to it, hasn't it?
Only a fool breaks his own heart.
Not bad for 2:49. Okay, this one I felt a bit intimidated about talking about this. This is Robert Wyatt and Sleep. Now, Robert Wyatt is one of these artists who I sometimes feel like people use him as a kind of, it's almost like a badge of honour, you know. It's like if you're into Robert Wyatt, he's one of those talisman artists which people, I think, I sound a bit cynical, people use him as an indicator of musical taste, because there's lots of people who don't like him, who can't stand his voice, you know. So just to be clear, Robert Wyatt was the drummer in the Soft Machine. He's the guy that plunged from a window and broke his back, I think it was, and he ended up in a wheelchair. And then he carved himself as a career as this extraordinarily English, quirky singer-songwriter. I'm not sure if that's the right word for him. He did an album called Rock Bottom, which was produced by Nick Mason, which it's really highly prized by you know, people who consider themselves connoisseurs, I suppose, of English, I don't know, avant-garde jazz pop, I suppose you'd describe it. I mean, I love Robert Wyatt, you know, but like I said, I think he's a bit like Captain Beefheart, in that people pride themselves on being into him. And I was very keen not to wax lyrical about him. I don't want to sound pretentious, but this is a great album. He was a big fan of pop music, really, Robert Wyatt. You know, he was a jazz drummer. You know, he famously covered I'm a Believer by the Monkees in the 1980s, maybe? Or maybe it was in the 1970s. But he was always a big pop fan. And he didn't like the idea that he was prized as some kind of esoteric, difficult to get into, avant-garde, you know. I think he wanted to be popular. He wanted to have broad mainstream appeal. Not exactly mainstream appeal, but he wanted to be liked. He wanted to be popular. He didn't want to think of himself as being a kind of niche artist. But I think he is a niche artist, really. This album is really interesting because he actually plays percussion again. In fact, on some tracks he's playing a drum kit. I mean, he can't be playing the bass drum because, you know, he doesn't have the use of his legs, but he's definitely playing the cymbal and the snare drum, you know, as a jazz drummer would. Interesting roll call of guest artists on this record. Evan Parker is on here. Paul Weller plays on one song. Great track, actually. That it's just a duet with Robert. Just the two of them, I think. Free Will and Testament, it's called. Paul Weller just plays this very soft kind of guitar. Robert Wyatt plays keyboards and percussion, and Paul Weller on guitars and a harmony vocal. It's got a very sort of intimate late night feel again. I think that's the theme of this video, really. Intimate late night music. But he's very original with the way he comes up with melodies, I think, because he basically, I get the sense that he's got a head full of jazz bebop melodies, you know. I think he writes everything on a kind of keyboard, and the tunes are very kind of unpredictable. They kind of go everywhere. It's probably modal, you know, as in he leads with the melody rather than the chords maybe, but the chord sequences are really intricate and really difficult to get your head round sometimes. You can hear Paul Weller's sort of slide guitar in the background there. And the words are quite funny, you know. He writes very quirky, ironic kind of lyrics. And his words are always full of natural imagery. You know, he writes a lot about life under the ocean and, you know, over an ocean away like salmon turning back for Nariam to the delta with the rivulets tumbling down, glide over sand around the rocks, back through the wavering weeds, and the turds in the way, river smell on the route, a longer way, over gravel, the weirs of the tributaries against the icy water flow to Marianne. That's the song Marianne, which is track number 3. Let's put a little bit of that on before we finish with Robert Wyatt. I've got a feeling he's retired now. I read somewhere that he wasn't really interested in doing any more work. You know, he kind of thinks that he did everything that he wanted to do. When he had his accident, the doctor told him he'd be lucky to live more than 20 years. But I mean, this was, I don't know, 40 years ago now. And I think he's kind of smoked roll-ups ever since, you know. So and he's been a drinker as well. So he's done really well. But anyway, beautiful album. Sleep by Robert Wyatt. I think this is the track that's got Evan Parker on it. Who else is on this record? I think there's somebody else on here as well, which I wanted to mention. Oh, Annie Whitehead is on here. She's a British trombonist who was in the group Loose Tubes. I've got one of her solo albums on vinyl back on the shelf up there. She's really good. Oh, Phil Manzanera I think is on here. Brian Eno helps out on it. I love this. I could listen to this all night. Anyway, I might leave it there, you know. I might leave it there for tonight. We're on 15 minutes. There's a couple of other things, but... So, I've got this plan for some live streams, but I think what I'll do is I'll upload a video and I'll explain in that video what my plan is for it and then see what people think. I need to choose a day and a time to do it, but I'll do that soon, hopefully. I was going to talk about coronavirus, wasn't I? I don't want to now. I feel like I'm in a mellow mood now. I don't really want to talk about it. It's all a bit of a downer. I'm just hoping people are doing okay. You know, just keep listening to music, keep watching VC videos, keep supporting each other here on the YouTube community. There's people making great videos out there, and you know, a lot of camaraderie and a lot of good spirit. So let's just hang on in there and hope everything pans out somehow. Okay, folks. I hope you enjoyed this Sunday Evening Listening Couch installment number 4, I think it is. And I'll be back soon. Okay, take care. Bye-bye.